welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nguyen, and in today's video I will be doing a review on the professors at my nursing school, which was at the University of Memphis, Loewenberg College of Nursing, main campus. So today's video is going to be specifically catered to main campus Loewenberg College of Nursing students, and I will be sharing how I got through specific courses with specific professors. So without further ado, we'll just jump right into it. So just some background information in case this is the very first video you've ever watched from me, but my name is Nguyen, and this is actually the fourth video in my nursing series. I created a nursing series based on the DMs I received while I was going through nursing school and even post-graduation as a new graduate nurse. So I wanted to create a series just covering anything related to nursing, all the topics, and giving you guys advice from my personal experience and a little bit of research to help anyone out there that may be a nursing student or interested in nursing, or maybe a new graduate nurse. So if any of that interests you, be sure to subscribe to my channel or share this video or any of the videos prior to anyone that you think it may help or interest. So as I mentioned, I was a nursing student at the University of Memphis, Loewenberg College of Nursing, the main campus. I graduated this past May 2021. I just recently started my nursing career as a neuro ICU nurse. So all the advice I'm about to give is still relatively fresh and in my mind. And I just wanted to give a special shout out to all the nursing students that helped me create this video by sending me your schedules. I did post in our Facebook group and on my Instagram asking you guys for any current nursing students to send me their schedule from N1 to N5, just to help me cross-reference who the professors are, because they've changed throughout the semesters as I was going through school and even now after I've graduated. So I wanted to make sure that the advice I'm about to give was actually going to benefit you guys and be applicable for you guys. So I'm only going to speak on the classes where the professors are still the same as to when I was going through the course. That way I don't waste your time and I don't waste my own time talking about a class that the professor has changed, so who knows how you guys are going to get through that course. And if you're coming from Lambeth campus, I know that we have some crossover in professors from main campus to Lambeth campus, so this may still be beneficial to you, but if not, I'm sorry, I only have experience with main campus. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with the video. To start with N1, so this is semester 1. I call this semester you either got it or you don't, because you literally either got it or you don't. So going into nursing school, very first time being a nursing student, you're gonna quickly see how different things are and how more challenging it is than anything that you've experienced before. So first semester for everyone is when they kind of have an idea of, okay, is this what's really meant for me? Is this what I really want to do? So that's why I call this semester you either got it or you don't. So to start out, pathophysiology is taught by Dr. Mcgowen, and if you guys haven't noticed by now, she's obviously very smart and knows what she's talking about when it comes to patho and probably anything related to nursing, but she's truly such a gem and so cool on top of that. So with pathophysiology, you definitely don't need the book at all. Dr. Mcgowen will give you all the resources that you need. So the PowerPoints that she has, that's literally all you need to have in order to study and to pay attention to her class, obviously. So for her class, when I was going through it, I literally handwritten notes during class, and I also used her PowerPoint as a way to guide me through my studying as well. The book had like 10 times more information than what she really wants you to know or wants you to pay attention to. So for her class, I did pretty much write out everything, and I did it 4 to 5 times because that was the only way that I could remember all the information. For me, what worked best was for me to handwrite all that stuff out in different colors. So if I was studying respiratory diseases, I would write respiratory diseases in blue, and then if I was doing cardiac, I would do all cardiac diseases in red, like something like that. On top of writing everything out for patho 4 to 5 times, I also drew diagrams, which I kind of count as my handwritten. I know 4 to 5 times sounds excessive. It was more like I wrote it down all once before just taking notes in class, and then I wrote it down again so that it can be neat and nice and color coded. Then I maybe wrote it down 2 more times in studying for a certain exam. So that's where I get the 4 to 5 times from. So I know that sounds excessive, but it was like spaced out over time. It wasn't like I did 4 to 5 times just writing it over and over and again. Another thing I did for patho was I created Quizlets to kind of help me. What I will say about Quizlet is that you want to make sure you don't put everything on one fat card. Like, I'm not going to put everything for bronchitis on the back of the card. I'm not going to say bronchitis and then on the back I'm going to have the patho, the risk factors, the clinical manifestations. I'm not going to do all that on one card, because then when I'm studying, it's not really going to help me study, because I'm just going to remember the first couple lines of that note card and know that it's bronchitis. Versus I do like bronchitis, clinical manifestations, and on the back it's just clinical manifestations, and then I do bronchitis patho, and on the back it's just patho. You'll end up with more Quizlet cards, but that will be what's most beneficial for you as far as studying. That was a good reference for me at the very end. Once I was too tired to write out anymore, I would just quiz myself through the Quizlet and do the flashcards. I will say patho was the one class I failed really bad on the first exam. I remember, because I was like, oh crap, I thought I knew all this stuff, but I guess I didn't. And so it's really important to seriously know your clinical manifestations on top of the patho. So that's what I would say to focus on, because if I can remember right, the things that I struggled with the most was the clinical manifestations for each disease process, or remembering it. When I got through that first exam and realized that I failed terribly, that's when I kind of shifted my studying. Which, just a side note, if you haven't watched my previous video on my nursing series going in depth about how to study and how to get through nursing school, I highly recommend to watch that first, just so that I can help you with this video, so that you can understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about some of the ways that I studied for each class, or how I changed in studying for each class. So that would just give you more details that I'm not going to go into in this video. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Moving on to health assessment, which is taught by Professor Perry. I literally only went to that class enough times to be in the class, meaning I think you have to go like 2 to 3 times, or you have to be present 2 to 3 times before they drop you from the class, because then they think you're not a student or something. So after the 2 to 3 times, I stopped going, because her lectures really were just like big story times. Like, she would tell us so many stories that I felt like we never got through the PowerPoint, or never finished the PowerPoint, and then I didn't really gain anything, because it was just like a bunch of stories. So for her class, definitely you need the book. She does give you study guides for every exam. So what I did was I made sure I did the study guide thoroughly, and I did handwrite everything once in creating the study guide, and then I would just read over my notes again and again and again. And I may or may not have made a Quizlet, but I think for the most part I just read over the study guide that I created, that I written out one time, and that was pretty much enough for me to do well in that class, because it was a pretty straightforward exam as far as what I could remember. And having health assessment lab be congruent with what we were learning in health assessment really helped drive the information into my brain. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure Professor Perry is very knowledgeable in what she teaches. However, I did not feel like I gained anything going to class, so I just decided to save myself those 2 to 3 hours and not go. So do as you will. I definitely don't promote doing that, but I'm just being realistic with you guys. And we're gonna move on to health assessment lab. For health assessment lab, I know that people have different instructors for health assessment lab. I was blessed enough to have Dr. O. So if you have Dr. O, you're in great hands. She literally was so sweet, just like an angel. She would read Bible scriptures to us and pray for us. And honestly, health assessment lab was a struggle for me, because it was so early. And what I want to say about health assessment lab is make sure you do the little study guides that they want you to do before you come to health assessment lab. You don't have to do it thoroughly unless you have a strict professor or instructor that wants you to have it all the way done. I know Dr. O, she wanted us to have it done, but it wasn't like life or death if you didn't have some of the blanks. I know that was pretty time consuming to do anyway, but make sure that you semi-do it, just because when you go to health assessment lab, you are going to actually like do something. So you want to have a general idea of what's going on. But if you don't, some days when I went, I kind of didn't know what was going on, because I didn't have time to read up or do whatever, because I was too stressed about another class. It's okay, because they still play these videos for you to show you like what it is you're about to do, certain assessments on video. So if anything, pay attention to the videos in class. Don't be like me. I kept falling asleep. It was early, the lights are out, and now they're playing this monotone video. So just try your best to stay up, eat some snacks or something. That's what I started doing to like stay up. But for health assessment, be sure you kind of have a general idea of what's going on, so that way you're not completely lost. But for the most part, it's not life or death unless you have a really strict instructor. Moving on to foundations of nursing, I'm not sure if Jacobs still switches out with someone, but Professor Jacobs is usually who teaches it at first. For foundations, I literally just listened to her, recorded her, and listened back to her lecture. She does get through her PowerPoint, so I pretty much just listened back to her lectures, wrote out everything at least once, and then I just read over those notes, and I did make Quizlets for her class. Other than that, I would say don't do those study guides that she she created for the reading, like reading guides or something. I forgot what she called them, but don't even bother doing that because it's literally a huge waste of time. It's way too in-depth. Like, she's not even going to ask you all of that unless you just really want to. I just don't think that's the best or efficient way to utilize your time, because you're going to see very quickly that it's a lot. And my friends and I remember the first couple weeks we were trying to do it, and we were just like, oh, F this, like this is just not even realistic or sustainable to keep doing. So do as you will, but that is my experience and my advice to you guys. I will say just pay attention to what she talks about in class and record her and listen back, because she does teach what she talks about. I never really opened up the big nursing book for her class. If I did, it was for FNS, like Skills Lab. For FNS Lab, I know that we have different instructors for that too. I actually had Dr. Mcgowen, and it was a really good experience. You do need the book. Make sure you do have that big fat book that nobody likes because it's so heavy, but make sure you do have that for FNS specifically. It does tell you step by step how to do certain nursing tasks and how to like stay sterile and stuff like that. And you do need it for the quizzes. Make sure that you're doing the quizzes when they're open and getting it in before the deadline, and make sure you also have a gist of what's going on when you come to lab, because unlike health assessment lab, they're not going to play a video or anything. You're just going to like get into it. The professor might ask you questions to see, you know, like if you did the reading, which you should have because you took a quiz, but I understand sometimes you might have just BS through the quiz because you were too busy with other stuff, because I've done that a couple times. But at least have a general idea so that you're not completely clueless or completely lost if they call on you and are like, so how do we do this? You don't want to just like stare back. And also don't be too nervous when it comes to FNS Lab, because we do have like simulation and stuff, but just remember you're doing this on a dummy, and if you're gonna make mistakes, then this is the time to do it. It's a learning experience, it's a teaching moment. So don't let anxiety get the best of you and freak out. Even when it comes to the final checkoff, which is like inserting the Foley or something, you're doing it on a dummy at the end of the day. Just make sure that you're reading over the steps and that you practice at home on like a stuffed animal or something to ease anxiety. But just remember that this is a learning experience and no one is expecting you to be perfect, you know, especially if you don't even have like any healthcare background. Like I didn't have any healthcare background. I've never even been in a hospital besides being born. I never even been in a hospital before nursing school. So don't freak out. It's gonna be okay to not know. There's always things like YouTube that you can look up. And speaking of YouTube, I will say the one person that I will always watch videos for a lot of N1 just to deal with patho and to deal with foundations was registered nurse RN or Nurse Sarah. I know a lot of people know about her, but just in case you don't know about her, registered nurse RN is a YouTube channel, and she has a lot of videos that go into patho, pharm, skills. She goes into a lot more detail than our professors are able to do because they have a time limit on their lectures. So be sure to check her out to help you with anything during N1, because I did watch a lot of her videos during N1. She even had health assessment videos. I definitely watched some of her videos for patho to learn the science behind everything and to kind of refresh my memory on what is normal versus what is abnormal, that's what patho is all about. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent or get off topic, but check her out if you are struggling to understand any of the topics. She can definitely help you, like she helped me, just based off her visual demonstration, and her explanation was very like plain and simple, or more plain and simple than like the book. Use her as a resource as well if you feel like you're not quite getting something during N1 or really any semester. That would be my biggest outsourced resource, is to utilize YouTube. There may be even other nursing channels that may be more beneficial to you, but make sure you just look into those things and look into those avenues, because sometimes the book and the professor isn't enough. So that's something that you can always go to at home at any hour. Lastly, for N1, we're going to talk about pharm, which you guys are about to be mad at me, but I'm not about to trash talk or down our dear beloved Dr. Chung, okay? He teaches a super hard class. I feel like any professor who teaches pharmacology, like they're automatically going to be hated because pharmacology is so hard to common people. Usually there are some people that, you know, they just get it and stuff, but for the most part everyone hated pharm. Everyone was struggling through pharm. I remember Dr. Chung used to literally start the class, every class, and pull up like the averages for his quizzes or his tests and basically show us that like a lot of the class is like doing below average or right at average. But for pharmacology, what I did was write it out 4 to 5 times as well. He gives you everything that he wants you to know, so I never ever opened up the book. I only paid attention to his PowerPoints. And I will say, from what I can remember, Dr. Chung really emphasizes the most on adverse effects and nursing considerations for most meds. He didn't really test too much about mode of action from what I can remember. I'm not saying just ignore mode of action for all your drugs, but make sure that your biggest emphasis on studying is the adverse effects and nursing considerations. Only study what he gives you. What he gives you is a lot already. You don't need to waste any more of your time going into the book unless you just really want to, or unless you feel like the book helps you more than he does. He's kind of in a sticky predicament because the class that he teaches is so hard. There's no way to make it easier because it's still just hard. So Dr. Chung, bless his heart, he is great. He's so nice, and he's obviously super intelligent. I mean, he's freaking teaching pharmacology. I love him. He's so sweet. I loved him even when he was a professor and I was like low-key failing his class. But for pharmacology, I will say don't be discouraged if you're kind of like borderline passing, even if you're going up to the third exam, because that was me. Literally, like the third exam I made a 90, and that's what kind of helped my grade go up. And as far as the final goes, he does give you a list of like 100 drugs for you to like kind of condense your studying down for the final, since it's comprehensive. So don't stress too much, just make sure that you study what he gives you. And as far as his class goes, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I fell asleep a lot of his classes, or I just like straight up didn't go, and I still just studied like what he gave us versus actually going and listening, because I know a lot of people have a hard time listening to Dr. Chung. That wasn't the case for me. It was just I was too tired, and I would like clock out after a certain amount of time of listening to like so much sciencey stuff. So yeah, I basically had to utilize my own time or take up my own personal time later on when I was like a little bit more there or with it to actually like study for that stuff. So I definitely wrote out everything 4 to 5 times, different colors. I definitely created Quizlets and used that as like a refresher, or use that as like my last ditch effort in studying after I was tired of writing, after I was tired of reading everything in different colors. That was like my last like checking point, was the Quizlets. Moving along to N2, I call this semester the you got it but can you keep it. So N2 is literally going to be your busiest semester. Most people will tell you if you get through N2 you can get through the whole nursing program, which that's pretty much like 90% true, but I'll talk about that more later. However, N2, unfortunately, the only professor that is still the same is the community professor for lecture, which is Dr. Hoffman. I'll let you guys know right now, I never went to that class. I went enough times to be present, and after that, I never went to that class because it was like 9 a.m. and she was very monotone, and the information or the lectures were so dry, I felt like, that I just like never went to class because I was gonna fall asleep right in front of her face. I literally was 1 point away from an A at the end, and I think she didn't give me that point because I was never in class. So whatever, because I still graduated and I still became something, so who cares. For her class, I literally just used her PowerPoints in conjunction to the book because her PowerPoints are very lengthy as well, but she does give you some sort of study guide or a list of what she's going to test over for each exam. So what I did was make sure I crossed out like every category that she was going to test over for the exam. I basically wrote out my own notes from what was on her PowerPoint compared to what was in the book. I basically just took the same topic that was in the PowerPoint and what she said in the PowerPoint, and then read in the book what it was, and then kind of like synthesize them together to formulate my answer, or to make sure I had all the points for whatever topic. That's basically what I did. I wrote it out once or twice, and then I just read over my notes again and again and again. I never really listened to her lecture, and I still was like 1 point away from an A because I remember the PowerPoints were pretty thorough, but I feel like sometimes they were like kind of vague, so the book kind of gives you a little bit more information as to like what were her points in the PowerPoints. And for the most part, I remember her exams being pretty like straightforward as long as you really know the topic or know your terms, because there was a lot of terminology as well. Another thing I would say for community is make sure you do those modules like super in advance. Like do them as soon as you possibly can and finish them so that you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the semester. Honestly, do that for every class in N2. Whatever you can get done in advance, do it and go ahead and submit it so you don't have to worry about it, because like I said, N2 is a lot of busy work and there's a lot of like busy courses, which is really there to kind of separate you from like an associate's degree versus a bachelor's degree. So like community, nursing seminar, intro to nursing, those are kind of like fluff classes. Like I'm not saying it's not important, it was definitely useful information, but if we were to like condense down a nursing program from what is truly necessary and what isn't, some of those assignments or some of those courses were definitely not necessary. Just make sure whatever you can do in advance, go ahead and do it, so that way you can free up as much of your time for yourself and for all the other stuff that's going to be going on. Because I did remember there was like quite a bit of projects and papers and then those modules. So make sure you do those modules as soon as possible, finish them, so that way when the deadline comes up for each one, all you have to do is submit the little completion document that you receive once you're done with the module. So that really helps me out a lot. I made sure I did that early on, like before the first exam even happened, so make sure you do that. For the community practicum, I know that everyone has different instructors or whatever, but I do know that we had to do that project, and what's good about the project is that at least you use your clinical time to complete it with your group. And it's okay if you don't know what's going on. We all did not know what was going on. We basically just faked it till we made it, and we made it at the end. So try not to stress about the community project. You're not going to spend that much of your personal time actually doing it because you do it mostly in clinical, so don't try to freak out. And if you don't know what's going on, it's okay. I didn't know what was going on either, and then at the very end we got done with the assignment and was just like, all right, what was that type thing. So don't stress about that. And the last class I want to talk about in N2, even though this is different professors and instructors as well, is nursing seminar. So for nursing seminar, it's basically a big discussion class. Just make sure you read and have a general idea of what you're about to talk about during nursing seminar. That will really help you out and not make you look slow when the professor is like trying to have an engaged conversation, because I feel like nursing seminar, the classes were smaller. Everybody was split up into like small little groups. So just make sure you have a general idea, and also do those papers in advance as well. Try to knock them out to help yourself and give yourself some extra free time, and also work on that nurse project, the interviewing a nurse project, whatever. If they're still doing that, try to do that as soon as possible as well. For N3, I call this semester you got it, you can keep it, now keep going. For N3 in general, my advice is a little iffy because N3 was when the COVID stuff happened and school was shut down and everything for us, so everything kind of shifted. But to start out, we'll talk about OB, which was taught by Professor Billings. I definitely used the book for her class because she contradicted herself a lot in her lectures, and it was very hard to figure out what was right and what was wrong, because sometimes she'll be like 20 minutes into the lecture talking about one thing, and the next thing you know, she'll be like, oh wait, that's wrong, it's actually this, and then she'll keep going for like another 20 minutes. And that literally confused the class so much because she did it pretty often, and it was just super confusing. So I always use the book, and she does give you these advanced directives, or what she calls a study guide, which, I mean, she also just lists out topics that she was going to cover. But I remember a lot of people being annoyed because it was pretty much like all the topics we've gone over, so it wasn't very like condensed at all to help. But for me, what I did was just make sure I covered everything on the advanced directive, and I used her PowerPoints in conjunction to the book. So whatever she had on her PowerPoints, I just looked at the book, read through the book. Unless she specifically said this is the right thing no matter what, like in her opinion type thing, then that's the only time I will go against what the book said, because she did also do that. She will say like the book says this, but it's actually this. But then, like I said, who knows, because she was always contradicting herself. Unless she says something like that where she's like straight up telling you don't listen to the book on this topic, listen to what I'm saying, that's the only time I would like take what she says over the book, just because she's the one writing the exams. I honestly didn't listen to her lectures too much because everything is in the PowerPoint, and like I said, I just used it in conjunction to the book, and I just made sure I had all the topics covered for each exam. And I also utilized Quizlet because with OB, a lot of it was like terminology, so that really helps if you know what OB terms are, and I made Quizlets for that. And that's basically what I did. I don't think I really wrote out anything. I pretty much just studied Quizlet because that was enough for me. OB, I don't know if it was just because I'm a woman and like one day I want to know this stuff because I want a kid or something, but OB kind of just like the information just stuck to me. So I didn't really struggle with that class, so I didn't really write anything down. I pretty much just used Quizlet. For evidence-based practice, I don't remember what the professor's name was that I had. I feel like it might be a different person now, but regardless, evidence-based practice should be a super easy exam. It's also a lot of terminology, but it's very researchy and not like sciencey, so there's not much critical thinking to be involved with evidence-based practice as far as the exam goes. I used the book to kind of answer whatever study guide the professor gave us, and that was enough for me to do well in that class. Everyone that I knew pretty much did really well in evidence-based practice, the exams anyway. What I will say is that throughout the entire semester, you're working on this research paper. It's okay if you have no idea what's going on, because that was my group as well. Like all of us, literally the whole class, every time we went to class, we're like, do you know what's going on? Do you know what's going on? Nope, like none of us knew what was going on. We literally just BS'd our way through until we had this super long paper. Nobody even knew we were doing it right, doing it wrong. Nobody knew. We just did something because we were supposed to, and we made a good grade, thank God. But I would be lying if I said we knew what was going on or if everything we did was like 100% right, because who knows? Nobody knew. We were all lost. Don't be stressed if that is you, because literally that was us the whole semester until it was over. All right, moving on to N4. When I said earlier that N2 90% of the time, if you make it through N2, you'll make it through the rest of the program, that 10% lies within N4, because in N4 is when you have adult 2 or complex, which is the critical care content. And honestly, that was the one time I literally thought I was going to be held back in nursing school, because I was like this close all the way to the final. I'm still writing on the line, and I couldn't believe it when I saw on the schedule that complex is being taught by somebody else now. And that's just like shocking to me. I don't know why I'm shocked, because I think she's been teaching complex for a while. But yeah, that class was so freaking hard. And the only thing I want to say about that class is that even if you guys aren't interested in ICU or that critical care content, try to be engaged and try to really learn that stuff anyway, because you just never know where you're going to end up. I started nursing school thinking I'm going to be a psych nurse, and then I went from wanting to be a psych nurse to wanting to be a med-surg nurse to thinking about ED when I was working in ED to now I work in neuro ICU. That was literally the last setting I would have ever imagined myself being in, because I seriously did not like ICU at all. The couple times that we went during COVID time, during N4, I was like crying. Like I wanted to cry. I didn't even want to be there for 6 hours. I didn't want to deal with that patient population. And it's just crazy that now I'm in neuro ICU. So don't just totally disregard ICU information or critical care information, because at the end of the day, if you can take care of the sickest of the sick, then you can take care of anyone. It's going to be overwhelming, and there's a lot of like equipment stuff involved. Try to somewhat have a general idea of it, or try to actually remember it for your own nursing career, even if you don't go into critical care, and be open to it, because you never know where you're going to end up. If you're struggling, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to help you. Just pray and cry and write down on a sheet of paper that you're gonna get through it, because that's what I did. Lastly, with peds, you should have no problem passing with flying colors, because Dr. Powers or Professor Powers, she is so helpful and forthcoming with what she wants you to know. She literally wants everyone to make an A, basically. And so I find it extremely difficult for anyone to struggle with peds, just because Professor Powers literally tells you what she expects from you. Pretty much for peds, I just used Quizlet, and I did use Powers PowerPoint. I really didn't need a book at all. I think she even tells you you don't need a book at all. And she lets you know everything that she wants you to know that's already on the PowerPoint. So I basically just like transferred PowerPoint information over to Quizlet and then studied the cards over and over, because some of it was terminology. The only time I written stuff out was when it was like the different cardiac diseases for the kids or something, like tetralogy of Fallot, like stuff like that. That was the only time I wrote it out, because it was a little tricky trying to think of which ones were serious and which one weren't serious. So I would write out important stuff like that just to get my mind to like remember and grasp the information. But other than that, Quizlet was enough for me. And like I said, if you just study and put in somewhat of effort, you're gonna make an A+. And 5, this is like the bing bong, like you're about to graduate. Congratulations, we should all be clapping for you. You're nearly done, and honestly, I'm so proud of you. Everyone should be so proud of you. Like, you're doing the damn thing. You're about to be walking on that stage and graduating and really working out here. So round of applause for you guys. For transitions, my biggest recommendation is to go ahead and get a UWorld subscription. Now, unless you lived under a rock, you should have heard about UWorld by now. That's literally what like 90% of people use to study for NCLEX. However, I want to encourage you guys to go ahead and get the UWorld subscription. Get a longer one, get like the 6 months one or something. It might be a little bit expensive, but it's better than getting a shorter term one, and you might have to renew like I did, because maybe you're not going to get your ATT or be able to test anytime soon. So if you keep having to extend it, that's more money in the long run. So what I recommend, especially if you're early into N5, go ahead and get the UWorld subscription. That way you have those practice questions, and that will really help you on the quizzes and transitions, because there's no way to really study for transitions. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys you need to go through all the content that you've learned so far, because that's just like not even realistic, especially because of the transitions hours. And if you work another job, like that's a lot. So there's no way you're going to like look back to everything from N1 to N4 and be studying all that. So what I recommend is to go ahead and get the UWorld subscription and start doing practice questions, especially in the categories of whatever the quizzes are about to be in. The quizzes are based on like the top 10 types of categories NCLEX quizzes you want: physiological adaptation, healthcare management, health promotion, stuff like that. So make sure you kind of set up your Q bank or your questions bank to be incongruent of what quiz you're about to take for transitions, and I feel like it would really help. I didn't do this in N5, but I wish I did, because I kind of just winged it throughout the entire semester on these quizzes, and some quizzes I did really well, some quizzes I didn't do well, and it was hard because it's only 10 questions. I also just Googled like nursing questions, health promotion, like whatever the category was, I would just Google it. But when you do that, it's very hit or miss with the questions, because I'm sure by now you know, or everyone that's tried it, you know that sometimes those websites, it's like, this is a terrible nursing question. And I also believe that if you go ahead and practice UWorld questions, it would literally set you up very nicely for the transitions exams and for the HESI exit. Because even on, what's it called? Even on that website that we signed up for in school, where they had those practice questions, like I forgot what the thing is called, but we signed up for it like an N1, and whatever we go through to set up the HESI, that, I forgot, I'm drawing a blank. I don't remember what that website was. Those questions, like, yeah, they're helpful as far as like refreshing your memory on certain content, but I feel like UWorld is going to be a lot more congruent with what NCLEX will kind of look like, and it'll probably be more beneficial for you as far as HESI, because UWorld is a little bit harder than HESI. So, and they give you rationales as well. So if you're reading through the rationales, you're gonna somewhat be studying and refreshing your own memory on the different content anyways. So that's really gonna help with your exit exam. And make sure, 1000% make sure that you do that remediation way in advance. If Dr. Sasser is still out here making y'all do all this extra crap that he made us do during N5, writing notes for every little article under all the topics that we missed or didn't do well on, you guys know what I'm talking about, the HESI remediation. If he's still making you guys do all that extra work, make sure you're doing that way in advance. Make sure you're breaking it up and doing it throughout the semester. Don't be like me and wait last minute, because I swear that last 1 or 2 days right before the deadline, I was like up for like 16 hours of the day just writing, and then like taking screenshots of all these quizzes and trying to compile it together. Like I was literally like rushing right before the deadline. I think I submitted it a minute late. Thank God he wasn't petty and like didn't take it, because I would have freaking failed N5 if I didn't get that 10%. That's why every percentage matters in nursing school. I don't care what anyone says. Don't think that, oh, this 10%, this 5%, this is nothing. Every percentage matters, because like I said, I was low-key going to fail N5 if I didn't get that 10%, because I think if I didn't get that 10%, if he didn't count my remediation, I would have had to make like 1,000 on the HESI, which I ended up making like 950, but still, I would have failed. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for N1 through N5. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, please be sure to comment below and let me know. I love interacting with you guys. I love that a lot of you guys are on my Instagram now, and you guys message me all the time about different stuff. So if you're not following me on Instagram, please be sure to head over there and follow me. I'll put my Instagram handle up somewhere. But yeah, be sure to follow me, because I do use Instagram solely. I know I was on Facebook in the Loewenberg page and stuff, but I'm really bad about being on Facebook. So be sure to follow me on Instagram, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. And if you think this video will help anyone out there at main campus, be sure to share. Or if any of my other nursing videos you think may interest or help someone, be sure to share those videos as well, because I'm definitely trying to grow my platform and grow my audience. And I know I haven't really been consistent on YouTube, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know why. And I just want to say I'm sorry, and I don't even want to make any promises anymore. We can all rave about it after I've been consistent, because right now it's a little messy, and I'm sorry to be dragging you guys all through it. My life is just kind of a mess. So thank you so much for giving me so much grace and for being patient with me. I promise I'll try to create more consistent content for you guys and not be so slow to upload these things, because I know there's been quite a few people messaging me on Instagram, and they're just like, I'm waiting for this video, I'm waiting for this video, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it together. So I really hope this helped any of you guys out there. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will hopefully see you guys very soon.